Hey everyone. Oh, scratchy voice, froggy voice. Hi there. I was thinking about something today and I wanted to just share some of my thoughts with you. And I think that I titled this little live, let me just check that it is live. I titled it, I think it's Teach the Children Everything. So I will explain what that means yeah, it looks like I'm live. All right. I check every time. I check every time. Okay. So if you've ever watched me, you know that I check to make sure that I'm going live. So, all right. Teach the children everything. What do I mean by this? So I've heard, I'm going to share some things that I've heard from a couple of different sources. And I do watch a lot of different videos, and I feel like I read a bunch of different things, and sometimes I do honestly forget where I've read or heard something. So I think to the best of my memory that the sources I'm going to mention are accurate, but feel free to double check. Feel free to say, maybe it came from another source, but I do believe that they're as accurate as I remember them to be. So in ancient Lemuria or Lemuria, um, as the babies were born and as they were raising the children, they the children were next to their parents, their grandparents, the elders, just the whole community. They were raised within a community. And what the elders knew, what the older people knew, and I mean everything about how their tribe or civilization worked, was the knowledge was passed on to the children at a very, very young age. Um, I don't know the exact details, but as soon as a child was able to have the proper cognitive function and understand certain things, they started sharing their wisdom with the children. So they did not wait till the child was X age to share this or X age to share that. I've heard people say the children knew what the adults knew. So that's coming from a source from Lemuria, a gentleman that is a Maori elder and a Lemurian elder. Um, I've also heard it from Alex Collier. And if you look him up, I think you can find him on YouTube, and he does have his own website. And he's been involved with the Andromedans for decades. So that is a star nation. And he has intimate knowledge of them. They've been working with him, and he's been sharing information back to us about how the Andromedans work. And I believe that I recently heard him as well say the same thing. It wasn't a recent interview of his, but I recently heard him, it might have been a year or two old, where he said, same thing, as the children are being raised, they know exactly what the elders know. Because there are many reasons, but they feel like the children are equal to the adults. They are, the souls are wise. They just happen to be younger and they're children. And their age, it's really just the age, but the soul, the heart, the mind is of equal to the elders. So they saw the children as equal, which is really quite beautiful. And for those that have children, I keep hearing over and over again that if you allow your child will actually teach you so much. We think as adults that we are training the children, but they are really bringing in this wisdom that's closer to source sometimes. So they're really, if we allow them, they can be like our greatest teachers. So those are two sources that I've heard where they hold this tradition, is to teach the children everything. And the next piece that I'm going to share with you, which I've heard this as well, and it's just something that I personally believe, and you do not have to believe this, but in times of the galactic wars that have been going on forever. I don't even know like how long is forever, how long is eternity, but galactic wars have been going on for quite some time. And I'm going to pull in a story that most of us are familiar with. So the Superman story, and I have heard this from people. And again, whether you believe this or not, it really doesn't matter because most of us are familiar with the story of Superman. A lot of people do believe that that is based on true galactic history. And there have been many planets in our solar system, star system, and even beyond, where there's been battle for the planet. There's been a battle of good and evil that's been going on. And so different nations, star nations, planets will go to war with each other. That's what I mean by galactic wars. And so in the story of Superman, his planet is the planet that he's from is about to be destroyed. And his parents see this coming, they sense it coming, it's imminent, and they stick the baby in whatever it's called, like a pod, a spaceship, and he's off. Did they program it for planet Earth? I'm not quite sure. Maybe they did, maybe not. I kind of feel like they did plan to send him to planet Earth. So in that sense, now you might say he's a baby. They didn't get a chance to, share all of the information from their civilization. He didn't have that information. That, I really can't speak to that because how old was he? Was he 6 months? Was he 9 months old? Were they talking to him about these things? Was he able to store some of it away in a memory bank that he accessed later? No, we don't know any of that. We do know that, again, in the story, he lands on planet Earth. He was raised by humans. Later, he comes to know that he comes from a different place. He has another father that he's in communication with. And of course, this is coming through like a beam of light, through the dimensions, all very interesting things. And years ago, there was a TV show called Smallville, which was based on the story of the younger Superman Clark Kent character. And I remember in some of the later seasons, he had stumbled across some caves that were, I think, where he grew up, in the town that he grew up in, which I think was Smallville. And he sees these symbols written on the cave wall. And other people had come across this cave, not a lot. It was kind of a secret, but he and I think some of his high school friends had stumbled across it, or maybe he was guided there. And you see that as he's looking at the symbols that are etched on the wall, on the cave wall, they start to light up. So this is what I remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but as he's looking, they light up. It's almost like they can sense him. They know he can read it, so they light up. So now he can actually understand. And whether it was the history of where he came from started to get downloaded to him. I think that's how it went. I'd have to rewatch it to be 100% sure, but it was like an activation. It was a memory for him. And he's seeing this and it looks familiar to him. And again, remember, he was shipped off as a baby. So how does this seem familiar to him? Because there was this inner knowing, and maybe his family who had died, but he, had been in contact with his father, and I believe maybe even his mother. They would come to him, like through that beam, which we can kind of equate to like when our loved ones that have crossed over come to us in dream time, or they speak to us somehow in signs and symbols, or you might go for a reading or a mediumship session with somebody and your loved ones come through. So I believe that they were imparting wisdom to him as he was little and growing up. So again, back to the cave wall, he sees these symbols and they light up, and then he's able to read them, and just it's like this. He knows what's written. He just knows without having actually studied it. But it is within him. That knowledge was imparted to him, was implanted in him, and literally just waiting for the moment where he is activated to it again, where he sees it, he knows what it is, he understands the history of where he comes from, what his mission is, why he was sent away, all of these things. So I know that I sort of maybe digressed a little bit, but I just wanted to share that with you. I think it is such a beautiful, beautiful way to raise children. And if we do, still talking about the Superman story, for them and even for the Lemurians, they just thought it was important. They didn't know when somebody would come in and get rid of them. They didn't know that, and they were just preparing the next generation with all the information that they needed to continue. And I think part of their thinking is if we wait till the children are 15 or 20 or 25, or if we just wait for that right age, we might be gone. There might be a group that comes in and takes us out in the middle of the night, or takes half of us out, where we lose that wisdom. Whereas if you raise the children next to you, walking, standing, learning next to you, they have that knowledge. And now they're able to contribute as part of the whole, and they feel special and just as important as everyone else. I also think about olden times, not too long ago, 100+ years ago, where people would apprentice with other people, whatever that meant. And I tend to think of it like more men apprenticed to be blacksmiths or, things like that. But women were apprenticing too under the tutelage of other women, whether they were studying herbs, plant medicine, maybe sewing, whatever. People apprenticed at very young ages, 100 or more years ago, and they were learning from their elders. They were learning a trade. They were learning something. So we have lost this in our society, I believe. I mean, yes, we go to school. We can go to school and get further education, but to just grow up with the wisdom of our elders as we're growing up is something that used to be done, and not too long ago. There are, when we look at the Aboriginal people in Australia, they have the oral tradition, which there's a really beautiful book. Let me see if I can remember the name. Mutant Message Down Under. Mutant Message Down Under. It's kind of a weird title, but it talks about the Aboriginal people of Australia would have an oral tradition, and they would tell the stories of their ancestors going back like 10,000 years. They didn't write anything down. They were nomadic people. They moved around. They moved around for food and water, and just because that was part of what they did, is they didn't have permanent dwellings. And so they kept their oral tradition going by storytelling, and they could go back that many thousands of years. And in this book, it's really interesting because they would walk through a certain area and they would start telling a story of something that had happened there 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, whatever. They knew from landmarks, from trees, from rocks, that something important to their people happened there. And so as they walked, they would remember and do the storytelling. It's really quite beautiful if you ever get a chance to read the book. Also, I'm reminded of, and let me just pop over to another screen so I can get the title correctly. Okay, if you guys have not seen the movie Captain Fantastic with Viggo Mortensen, really, really fantastic movie. It's about a father raising, I think he has 6 children, and he teaches them how to hunt. They are all physically fit. They're doing like calisthenic exercises and they run every day. They're doing yoga. But even the little kids, the book that he has them reading, I mean, they can cite the Constitution, they can cite laws. They're reading Shakespeare at a very young age. This man was treating his young children right on his level, as though they are his age, as though they know what he knows. He was training them to, he was talking to them as though they were adults. It's a serious movie, but there is a lot of heart and there is humor in the movie. So if you have not seen it, I do highly recommend that movie. What else? I think lastly, I don't know, maybe this is why I am sharing this with you all today. Lastly, one of my uncles is visiting with us this week, and I have not seen him in about 6 years. He lives in Canada, so it's not like a short car ride to pop up and see him. But anyway, every time we get together, every single time, he just starts telling me stories of his family, which is my mom's family. He starts telling me stories of when they were little. He starts telling me about my grandmother and grandfather, so his parents. He has told me stories about his grandfather, so it would be my great grandfather. And I never actually even met my grandfather. He passed away before any of his grandchildren were born. So when he tells me these stories, they are very, very, very special. And this visit, I pulled out my phone because I wanted to record his voice. I didn't need to necessarily record him on video, but I wanted to record his voice, and he wasn't really super comfortable with that. So I'm like, okay, stop. Let me go get paper and a pen. And he's like, okay, I'll wait for you. So I'm like writing. So I'm writing all of these stories that are really important to me. There's a lot of significance in them. There's some funny stories. There's some stories that are very not funny, but it explains a lot of how our family functions and what shaped some different personalities within the family. And he happens to be the youngest, but he remembers all of these things that, honestly, my mom tells different stories, and I've heard her stories many times. So I'm not really hearing new stories, but with my uncle, it seems like every time that we get together and visit with him, I'm like, oh my gosh, either you told me that last time and I forgot, or this is like something I've never heard before. So I'm like writing stuff down, and I'll be, taking more notes again soon, because I just think it's important. And if he lived closer, even my mom said, if we lived closer, if you weren't 10 or 11 hours away, just think of how life would have been different. Like, she's like, we'd have way more fun, because he's a really fun guy. He's very knowledgeable. He knows a lot about history and world history. And it's just really interesting and fun to listen to him. And he's funny, so we laugh. And I think how cool, not that my parents didn't teach me things, but how cool to have been brought up in like a village where you were like just learning. You're hanging out with your uncles and your aunts and your cousins, and you guys were all just learning, and the wisdom of what the elders had was passed down to the young ones, so that when it was time, they could step up. And as we know, and again, not too long ago, men were considered men and women were considered women at the age of puberty, and they were, married at a young age, had children at a young age. So things are different. They went through rites of passage, to be initiated into adulthood. So things have changed for us. And I just think it's a really special thing to have elders around you to share stories and to share wisdom. So if that means anything to anyone out there, great. If it doesn't, that's great too. I really just wanted to share my thoughts. And if anyone has any comments, I would love to hear them. Do you guys, what do you think about us raising children and just sharing the wisdom that we have with the young ones? So, so they're walking beside us, and we're asking them for their opinion and their advice, and we are making, decisions together, and it's very community oriented. Okay, that's what I have for you today. If you want to drop a comment, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have the rest of your night goes really beautifully. Thanks. Bye.